Hi, I'm Bonnie Bishop, and I got my start, for the most part, I was an opera major in college, and I'd done music theater and kind of everything and I started writing some songs and played my very first gig, I think it was my very first gig, out at Pootie's Hilltop Lounge, which is kind of the place you don't ever tell people that you played, but it's out outside of Austin, and it's kind of a dive bar, and they've got this jar of pink pickled eggs on the bar. And the way I got my first gig was my guitar player was bantering with Pootie about giving me a gig, and he had never heard of me, and he said, well, you know, if you eat these pickled eggs, I'll give that girl a gig. And so he ate pickled eggs, and that's how we got our first gig. I don't know nothing about trade. Growing up, my influences were a lot more Motown. I listened to a lot of Otis Redding and Aretha Franklin. And going into high school, I got into classic rock, Creedence Clearwater, and James Taylor, Bob Seger. And then kind of now in the past couple of years, I'm a big fan of some of the Texas writers, Walt Wilkins and Hayes Carll and Jack Ingram. And so I think kind of the soul part of that I grew up with, singing that kind of music, kind of mingled in there with a lot of the rootsy stuff and the raw songwriting, and created whatever this is that we're doing. Some people compare it to Bonnie Raitt, which is a huge compliment to me because I love her. And she's, you know, as a woman, as a career type, you know, if I could have any career in the world, I would want to have a career like hers. You know, a lot of mainstream people, young people, don't really know who Bonnie Raitt is, but anybody that knows anything about music and appreciates music at all has been following her for a long time. And I'd say she's most influential in the fact that she started out for years and years doing it on her own, grassroots, and then it grew into this amazing thing where she just really emerged with her own identity in music, and in that way she's been a huge influence on my career. I would describe my sound, yeah, well, there's a lot of like blues and soul in there, and then some rock too, and some country. I don't know, I guess that's what Texas music is. Once again, we call it Texas music because we don't know what we are, we're just from here. But it's got a lot of blues and soul influence, and then there's the, you know, a lot of the stuff is softer and more raw and honest songwriting, and I don't know. If you figure out what to call it, somebody call me and let me know, because everybody always wants to know what it is, and I don't know, so maybe somebody else can come up with something. We'd be better off. Just know how it feels, and there's nothing I can do, yeah. There ain't much I can say. What else is there left to say? There ain't much I can say. You know, the best part of playing live doesn't really happen all the time, which is that you would play a show to a bunch of people that came there to see you, and whether or not they're familiar with your music, you know, watching people sing along with your songs is great, but knowing, seeing people with tears in their eyes at a song that you've written, or seeing them moved or falling in love with the person that they're with in the audience, you know, knowing that you've made an impact on somebody, it's great. And you don't always know, you know, sometimes on the bigger stages in the festivals you don't know, on the smaller listening rooms you do, and of course in the sports bar when everybody's, you know, watching TV in the background while you're singing, you don't really get that. But I would say the best part of playing live is the immediate gratification of knowing that what you've done artistically and, you know, emotionally is fulfilling its purpose, which is, you know, making a difference in somebody's life, whether it makes them feel something or makes them change or whatever. That's, for me, that's the best part. What artists are having a big impact on the scene? Well, I would say right now, two of the big things that are happening are that Jack Ingram and Randy Rogers are really breaking outside of Texas, which is nice to see that they've, you know, built these great crowds here, and it's, you know, it's transferring outside. It's getting the point across outside of Texas too, because They're playing in front of, Jack, I guess, was on tour with Sheryl Crow for this summer, and Randy's playing with Dierks Bentley and some other national acts, and so that's a big deal for Texans. It's always, it always seems to put everybody in an uproar when you have a Texan that does well here, that goes outside of Texas and does somewhere else. Like, they want to say they're a traitor because they went beyond the borders, but I feel like it's important for some of the artists to break out and try and do that, or people will never really give any attention to what the Texas artists are doing. If we always stay kind of confined in this border, I feel like the industry doesn't really take us seriously, but it's really great to see people, especially Jack, getting out and having an impact nationally. I mean, he had a #1 single this year on Billboard charts. And so that's awesome, because that makes industry people think, oh, well, maybe Texas isn't all about, floating down the river and drinking beer, no offense. So they want to come down here and check out everybody else. And so that's a big deal. And for me personally, artists making a big, having a big influence in the Texas scene, to me, people like Hayes Carl, I've said his name like 10 times, I'm a huge fan. And Hayes, I think, is a good combination of a Townes Van Zandt and a Guy Clark, just these classic songwriters that write just, kind of songs that'll last forever. And I see Hayes as being that, and I think he might be our next legendary songwriter. And I think he's doing stuff all over the world, and everywhere I go now. I was carrying my Hayes Carl CD around to Nashville and to LA and handing it out to my friends, and now people know about him everywhere I go. So he's obviously on the songwriter front making a big splash, and I just think he's great, and he's going to really make people take Texas songwriters seriously again. You got it where I'm talking, sits be right at ease. You got it where I'm knowing just what I need. If I could tell my fans one thing, I would tell them, if it weren't for people actually coming to shows, none of us in Texas would have a career at all, because our whole thing functions around live shows, and that's how we get out there. And so thank y'all for giving us the opportunity and coming out and giving new artists a chance. We were all new artists at one time, and you dragged your friends to lots of shows, and they didn't want to go see a chick singer that they've never heard of. She came anyways, and so thank y'all for supporting all of us. Oh yeah, and come see me play at Sounds of Spring on April 19th. You sure? Yeah. Come see us play at Sounds of Spring on April 20th. Don't come on the 21st, because nobody's going to be there, so just come on the 20th. Cheers.